Everyone, welcome to the show. I have a bunch of updates to share about Donald Trump's trial. So, the first witness today was a woman named Sally Franklin. She's an employee with a publisher of several of Trump's books, and the prosecutor had her come on to read some passages from Trump's books to basically further corroborate previous testimony about how Trump was cheap, about how he never wanted to pay anything, full price. Also, there were statements in the book that supposedly came from Trump that further prove that he likes to maintain complete control over everything in his business. He talked about knowing every minute detail and how important it was to be involved in every single aspect of your business. Like we've heard from previous testimony, here it is, supposedly in Trump's own words, saying he is aware of everything that happens in his company. So the defense is going to have a hard time once again saying, oh, but he was totally unaware. He just didn't have time for all of the little minutia, all the details. Next up was one of the witnesses we've all been waiting for, adult film star and now producer Stormy Daniels. So the prosecutor started off trying to humanize Daniels for the jury. That is, of course, necessary because there's going to be people on the jury who are uptight. They freak out about porn or whatever, or they judge her. And so the prosecutor asked her about her childhood, about her education. If you've ever heard Daniels speak, she's a very intelligent woman. In fact, she said that she graduated in the top 10 of her class. She took some college courses. She was a dancer. So she's, there was a lot to her other than, adult film star. But Daniels was apparently raised by what she described as a neglectful mother. She said she would disappear for days on end. Her father basically checked out after her parents divorced when she was, I think she was 4. And so she had to work. She had to support herself because she moved out at 17 years old. So later in her testimony, she detailed how she met Trump. They were at the celebrity golf tournament. Daniels said she was 27 at the time. The prosecutor said, "Did you know how old Trump was at that time?" And she said something like, I didn't know exactly, but I knew he was my father's age or older. Ouch. And then she went on to explain that she was later approached by his bodyguard, Keith. She said that Keith tells her, hey, Trump wants to invite you to dinner. And her response was, quote, fuck no. So she took Keith's phone number and she saved it in her phone, and she saved it as Keith Trump because she said, I didn't know his last name and I knew he worked for Trump. So she still has that number in her phone. And then later in the day, the day that she met him, Daniels said her publicist advised, you should go do it. You should have dinner with Trump. This is good publicity. And the publicist, according to Daniels, said, he's a businessman. What could go wrong? And apparently, when she said that in court, everyone started laughing. So Daniels went to Trump's hotel. You may or may not know this story. He said, oh, we're going to have dinner. We'll go down to one of the restaurants in the hotel. She arrives at his hotel room. She said he's wearing like satin or silk pajamas. And so she teased him about it, said, oh, does Hugh Hefner know you have his clothes? She told him, go get changed. And she said he did. He went in, he obliged, got changed into a dress shirt. So they talked for a couple hours. She said Trump kept asking her questions and then he would interrupt her when she was answering. So that goes to his history, supposedly, of having ADHD. So Daniels gave him some grief over that. She said, are you always this rude? And then she swatted him, she said, on the butt with a rolled up magazine. So at some point, Trump tells her, oh, you remind me of my daughter, Ivanka. So gross. Such a red flag to run, right? I mean, we all know how he feels about Ivanka. Anyway, Trump also mentioned having Daniels on The Apprentice, and later Daniels said she had to use the restroom. When she came out of the restroom, Trump was lying on the bed, only in a t-shirt and his boxer shorts. So what a sight that must have been. So Daniel said she tried to joke it off, she tried to get out of this situation, which all of us women can relate to, I'm sure. And she said Trump blocked her way. And then he said probably the most disgusting thing to her, even worse than the Ivanka comment. According to Daniels, he said, I thought you were serious about what you wanted. So vile. What a vile, sick bastard, right? I mean, in other words, if you really want to be on my show, you want to fulfill your goals and, do something with your life, you're going to have to give me what I want. Yeah. So Daniel said she asked about Melania. Trump told her, oh, we sleep in separate rooms. Don't worry about it, like as if that makes it okay. And then she detailed their sexual encounter. She said she stared at the ceiling the whole time. And then afterwards, she said she felt ashamed. She was shaking. She just wanted to get out of there. Trump, on the other hand, according to Daniels, he said to her, quote, oh, it was great. Let's get together again, honey bunch. So Daniels alleges Trump continued to call her 2 to 3 times a week after that. She said she took his calls because, yes, she wanted to get something out of it after all. She wanted to be on the show. And so she met with him again in 2007. He kept making sexual advances during that meeting. She said he kept putting his hand on her knee. And so she told him, oh, I'm on my period. What girl doesn't know and use that trick at least once in life? Am I right, ladies? Anyway, she stopped taking his calls eventually because she realized, oh, he's stringing me along. I'm never going to be on the show. And then years later, someone leaked the story about her and Trump to a tabloid. She had no idea, she said, who it was. She went to a Mommy and Me exercise class, years later. And she said that a man approached her in the parking lot and threatened her. So basically told her, keep your mouth shut. So she said in other interviews, I don't know if she said it today, but she said, she was terrified, she was shaking. She didn't report it though, because she didn't want her fiance to find out. She didn't want the story to get out. She didn't want this guy thinking she leaked the story, right, after he just threatened her. So Daniel said more people started calling and they were asking about Trump after the Access Hollywood story broke. So she was asked, why didn't you ask for more money from Trump? Because remember, Karen McDougal apparently got $150,000. Daniels got $130,000. She said, well, my motivation wasn't money. She said she was more concerned about her story coming to light and then her husband finding out and, all that kind of stuff. So in regard to the non-disclosure agreement, Daniel said, quote, we had to pretend that we didn't know each other at all. And then the jury was later shown a list of all the people who Daniels told about this, contemporaneously. And then obviously since that time, she's probably told other friends or family, whatever. And then Daniels was asked, are you concerned or were you concerned at the time about not being paid and the excuses that Cohen was making? And she said, no, it was more, quote, concerned that something bad was going to happen. So court broke for lunch. When they came back in, the defense approached the judge and demanded a mistrial. They said, some of her testimony could be prejudicial to the jury. They brought up issues of like the safety, the guy approaching her in the parking lot and stuff like that. So the judge agreed that he said, quote, some things were better left unsaid. But he said, we're not at the point where a mistrial would be in order. And then the judge said, I was surprised that the defense didn't object more often. And according to people who were there, everyone in court started laughing because a lot of people were thinking that. A lot of people were like, what are his attorneys doing? Why are they just sitting there? Why are they letting this go on? Because, yeah, if you had a problem with her testimony, why didn't you bring it up in the moment? And to me, there's only 2 reasons why. One could be they were trying to give the prosecutor enough rope to hang themselves so that they would have an excuse to demand a mistrial. The other reason, obviously, is that Trump threw a tantrum during the lunch break, right? I mean, that Trump completely freaked out about all these details that Daniels provided, which were clearly, some of them, super embarrassing to him. I mean, especially the part about Daniels not wanting to have sex with him, but she felt pressured to do it. Because remember, Donald Trump tries to act like, oh, every woman wants me. Every woman is so into me and blah, blah, blah. Look, I can get a Playboy model and my wife was a model and, I'm sleeping with porn stars, blah, blah, blah. Oh, they're all throwing themselves at me. No, she didn't want anything to do with him. And so that, I think, more than anything would be embarrassing. But in any case, Judge Mershon advised, use the cross-examination process. You can take issue with some of this then. The judge also said, I will advise the jury to disregard some of Daniels' testimony. So Daniels was called back to the stand. She was warned beforehand, don't elaborate, just answer the questions very simply, short and sweet. So the jury was then shown a October 2016 email sent from Daniels' attorney at that time, Keith Davidson, to Cohen. And he wrote, quote, no payment was received. So clearly they're waiting on a payment, right? And then he further wrote, quote, please be advised that my client deems her settlement agreement canceled. So that was because, like I've mentioned, Cohen was stringing them along, trying to get past the election so that they wouldn't have to pay her at all. So Daniels confirmed she signed a new agreement several days after that. She ultimately received approximately $96,000 after her attorney and her manager took a cut of the $130,000. Then the prosecutor later asked Daniels about the 2018 denial letter that she signed after a Wall Street Journal story broke about this whole thing. And she said, I didn't want to sign it, but she ultimately did. And then Daniels said that she purposely signed the document with a different signature than what she normally would because she did an interview, like I mentioned the other day, with Jimmy Kimmel. And she wanted to tip him off that this is not my signature or there's something up with this. And then Daniels later said that she wrote her book about her story so that her daughter would have a full account about why her mother did what she did. So a while later, the defense started their cross-examination. Daniels answered honestly and affirmatively when they asked her, do you hate Trump? She said yes. Then Trump's attorney asked, do you want him to go to jail? And Daniels said, if he's found guilty, I absolutely do. I want him to be held accountable. So then Trump's attorney launched into this lengthy back and forth about Daniels losing a defamation lawsuit against Trump and how she owes him $500,000 in attorney's fees. So Daniels took issue with some of the characterization of that, but she admitted that, yes, I owe him money. I will never pay him. She said she would rather go to jail than to pay Trump. And then they engaged in another long exchange about documents that Daniels is refusing to complete that are related to that money that she owes. And Daniels also confirmed writing a tweet where she called Trump an orange turd. But she said, well, he made fun of me first. And then later, Trump's attorney accused Daniels of telling attorney Gloria Allred that she didn't have sex with Trump. And Daniels said no. She said, I did not tell her that. She said, quote, I told her I did have sex with Trump. And then Daniels explained she didn't trust Allred, so she said she didn't give her all of the details about the sex, but then she accused Allred of encouraging her to basically say that Trump forced her to have sex with him. Daniels said, quote, basically rape. And that's something that Daniels has said, I am not going to do. I'm not going to say he raped me. I did it willingly, even though I didn't want to. So that is a pretty major accusation against a very high-powered attorney, meaning Allred. And in any case, the questioning went on with Trump's attorney hammering Daniels about her story. She accused her of making it all up. It went on like that for quite a while through the end of the day. So clearly, they're trying to undermine her credibility, which at the end of the day, this is not going to stand up to scrutiny with all of the other witness testimony, all of the other documentary evidence that's been presented. I mean, there's no question she received money, right? She received money for her silence. I mean, there's an NDA, there's the money transfer. You've got all these other people who said they knew about it. You've got David Pecker, who said, he was approached to pay her and refused because he didn't want to get involved with it. He didn't want to get stiffed again. And, the attorneys at his company said, no, do not do that. And I think too, some people have talked about why Daniels now wants to come out with this, why maybe she didn't see it as a big deal that, at the time, the whole thing with Trump and how it went down, and now she's kind of changed the framing on it. She's kind of changed the way she looks at it. She seems more kind of angry and bitter about having sex with him. And I would just say this, and this is what I would bring up as a prosecutor in this case. When you have a child, and especially when you have a daughter, and they start to get older, and you see how young and fragile they are, and how, in danger they are of the outside world and men, you start to see things differently. You start to see the world in a different, through a different lens. And you start to realize, yeah, there was a dynamic there. There was a power dynamic, and I was on the losing end, and I felt pressured. Maybe it wasn't rape, but I definitely felt pressured to do something that I didn't feel comfortable doing. And if I had been older, if I had been more secure, if I had been whatever, I would have said no. I would have just walked out. And, so many women have been in that position before. Anyway, I feel for her. I really do. I think that she is, like I said, a smart woman, and she's obviously very strong and has had to fight for everything in her life and make her own way. And I think that she's not going to go down without a fight. And I think that's part of the reason why she decided eventually just to speak out. NDA be damned, agreement be damned, because no, you're not going to push me around anymore. You're not going to tell me what I can and can't do. You already took something from me that I wasn't willing to give you or didn't want to give you, but I did it, and I got nothing out of it but a criminy mushroom. So anyway, I will let you know when I hear more on Thursday. Again, they do not hold court, or this judge does not hold court, at least for this trial, on Wednesdays. So I will be back with more of the trial coverage on Thursday. Thank you all so much for watching and listening. Please like, share, and subscribe. Please donate if you can. Love you all. Take care. Talk with you soon.